Hi, welcome back to Mysteries Channel. Thanks for stopping by today. Well, I'm going to continue on with my own weirdness and do a video on something called Project Sunstreak. You probably have heard of it, but don't realize it. Maybe you've heard of it, know exactly what it is, but you've at least heard of components about it. This was not the original video I was going to do today. Originally, I was looking up ley lines and I started researching it, and it was harder than I thought it was going to be. I realized that I couldn't really use the other maps without a copyright issue, and much of the stuff that I was finding, none of it was like corroborating each other, so it felt like there was a lot of people's opinions on what ley lines were. So I thought, what do I know really about ley lines? And I don't know much. I think that they are like power centers that are many times tied to ancient structures that follow lines that go around the earth. I had at one point in time heard that ley lines were that military bases sometimes also fell on ley lines, so I thought maybe I'll look it up that way. I've already dicked around a lot on the CIA's website, their Freedom of Information Act reading room. Maybe I'll go in there and I'll look it up. So I did. Went in there and I looked up ley lines and I found nothing at all. Then I thought, well, maybe I'll look up ancient sites because they're supposed to fall on the ancient sites and see if anything pulls up. And well, what I found had nothing to do with ley lines, but it's interesting nonetheless. So that's what the video today is going to be about. Project Sunstreak. What happened is I went in there and I started finding ancient sites, lots of them. I'm going to save that for the next video, what my thoughts are on all of it and the crazy stuff they talk about in this thing. Instead, I'm going to go over another document I found. So Operation Sunstreak, I found the information, the actual case files for the project in the CIA's computer, but I don't think it was the CIA's project. I think it was the Defense Intelligence Agency's project. It wasn't just theirs. Every single intelligence agency and function of the military had their own version of this, and it's remote viewing. For any of you who don't know what that is, we'll go over it in the document I'm going to share with you. So let's get to it. From the NSA Archive. When I went to the NSA, I couldn't find it either. So I'm telling you, it's very interesting how it's so compartmentalized and split up and split apart. The only reason I even understand or knew anything about Sunstreak was looking for ancient sites for ley lines, and I came across a bunch of different projects or a bunch of case files tied to this project called Sunstreak, and that's what this is. So let's go over it. Just a little note, as I'm going over it, many times they have stuff written here and then again in their slide. If it is just repeating the same thing, I'm going to skip over it. I'm not going to read it twice to you. Slide 1, Defense Intelligence Agency. I think the DIA is the actual owners of Project Sunstreak, but somehow the CIA is the one that approved the release. You can see here that it is approved release for 8/8 of 2000, and here is their CIA identification number for it. Good morning and afternoon. I would like to present a brief overview of the Project Sunstreak, giving a few points of its historical background, definition of its basic words, and explanations of what is accomplished by our project. This briefing and the information it contains is classified secret, special access information. Slide 2, Psychoenergetics. Project Sunstreak deals with the use of psychoenergetics in the collection of intelligence information. Psychoenergetics is defined as shown here and is broadly subdivided into two classes: mental effects on the physical world, purely mental collection of information. Psychoenergetics is defined as the process by which an individual may physically interact with objects, locations, organisms, or events. Psychokinesis is physical actions performed by mental powers. ESP, telepathy, remote viewing, perceptions which cannot be explained by known sensory means. Slide 3. Since the early 1970s, the Department of Defense has been involved in examining potential uses for psychoenergetics. Experiments using remote viewing as an intelligence gathering tool conducted by two laser physicists, Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ at the Stanford Research Institute, SRI, provided successful. Slide 4. Remote viewing is an SRI coined term. The definition is shown here. Remote viewing is defined as the acquisition and description by mental means of information blocked from ordinary perception by distance, shielding, or time. Slide 5. Using several apparently gifted psychic subjects, the most notable of whom are Pat Price and Ingo Swann, SRI scientists conducted several CIA-sponsored remote viewing tests. Slide 6. Psychic impressions included much detailed, accurate information, some of which was previously unreported about. This portion is obviously still classified. It's labeled SG1A, as all the rest of it that is classified and blacked out is through the rest of the document. These psychic impressions were confirmed by HUMINT and national technical sources. Most of this slide has already been repeated twice, so I'm just going to go down here. Gained detailed information about Soviet research and development facilities at Semipalatinsk. Again, the rest is blacked out right here. Slide 7. As a result of these original tests, emphasis over the last decade has centered on remote viewing rather than on other aspects of parapsychology, such as mental telepathy, ESP, or psychokinesis. Slide 8. DIA and the military services have all, at one time or another, been involved in numerous psychoenergetic tests, most of them being applications-oriented. In 1972, for example, the U.S. Army Surgeon General, through the Medical Intelligence Information Agency, now known as the Armed Forces Medical Intelligence Agency, together with the Defense Intelligence Agency, published studies of Soviet bloc work in psychoenergetics. Slide 9. In 1976, the Missile Intelligence Agency informally expressed interest in the U.S. replication of claimed Soviet experiments in psychokinesis. Slide 10. SRI developed a small program for them, and in 1977, the Missile Intelligence Agency awarded SRI a one-year research and development contract. Slide 11. During the same time, the Army Material Systems Analysis Agency was involved in the investigation of remote viewing concepts with SRI. Slide 12. Also, in 1977, the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, INSCOM, established a project team under the Assistant Deputy Chief of Staff for Human Intelligence and implemented the Gondola Wish program. Slide 13. The purpose of the Gondola Wish program is shown here. Project Gondola Wish. Purpose: to integrate the Soviet and Eastern psychoenergetic intelligence collection threat into the all-source Operation OPSEC support scenario. Location: Fort Meade, Maryland. I just want to throw here on a side note before I go on to slide 14. I live very close to Fort Meade, Maryland. I think the reason why it was based there is because it's close to DC. All the intelligence communities are based right around there. The NSA, the DIA, the CIA, the FBI, all of them. Also, on top of that, there is a naval base there, a lot of other bases around the area, so they could all work on it together and separate. It appears that is what happened. Okay, slide 14. By 1978, the Army ACSI concluded that there was sufficient evidence to warrant the development of a comprehensive program to explore intelligence collection applications of psychoenergetics. The Army ACSI canceled the Gondola Wish effort, placed a complete security envelope over the Army's interest in the psychoenergetics, and implemented a new program directed towards intelligence collection using remote viewing. 1978. U.S. Army ACSI cancels Gondola Wish, starts Project Grill Flame. Slide 15. This new effort was given the unclassified name Grill Flame. The purpose of this project was to use remote viewing as a collection method. Location, Fort Meade, Maryland. Slide 16. By the spring of 1978, INSCOM project personnel had been selected and trained, and training was initiated. Slide 17. The next concern, however, was whether or not information obtained from remote viewing could be of reasonable accuracy. Even if so, would the information be accepted and used by the intelligence community? Slide 18. Work to answer these questions was overcome by events. On 4th of September 1979, ACSI tasked INSCOM to locate a missing Navy aircraft. Hence, the first INSCOM Grill Flame operational remote viewing session took place. In this initial session, the remote viewer locating the missing aircraft within 15 miles of where it had crashed. Slide 20. Based on these results, INSCOM was tasked with working against additional operational targets. These taskings forced a premature halt to the initial training phase, and by December of 1979, the project was committed to operations. Slide 21. The beginning of slide 21 is blacked out, and then it continues with, because of this, an investigation committee was formed to review such activities. This committee was known as the Gale Committee. A final report was issued in December of 1979. Slide 22. Some of the important findings of the Gale Committee are shown here. The Gale Committee findings continue operational activities to determine the value of remote viewing for intel collection. Follow psychoenergetic threat from foreign sources. Establish a central DoD authority to fund and monitor a psychoenergetic program. Slide 23. Several months later, Dr. William Perry, Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, having been advised of the DoD's psychoenergetic activities and the Gale Committee's findings, issued a 5th of March 1980 memorandum. This memorandum terminated R&D P6 funding for psychoenergetics activities, but posed no objections to the continuance of intelligence application efforts. Slide 24. In February 1981, ACSI transferred Project Grill Flame management to INSCOM. As a result of the Gale Committee's findings and the Perry Memorandum, in March of 1981, the Director, DIA, and the Army ACSI signed a joint Grill Flame MOU. The effort formed between DIA and the Army was to implement a 3-year comprehensive program designed to do the following. Slide 25. Within this program, the roles of DIA and the Army were distinct. DIA-INSCOM MOU set roles: Defense Intelligence Agency, threat countermeasures, use established psychics primarily through SRI contacts. U.S. Army, INSCOM, apply remote viewing program, use assigned personnel, contract to enhance capability. Slide 26. This MOU also formalized the cooperation among active Grill Flame players other than DIA and INSCOM. At this point, you realize that, yes, there are many more players in this game. DIA, INSCOM MOU, Grill Flame players, Secretary of the Army, Army General Counsel, Assistant Surgeon General for Medical R&D, Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, NSA, CIA, Navy, and this part is, of course, still classified, again, SG-1A. Slide 27. This joint service effort continued until December of 1982, when the Budget Subcommittee of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence curtailed all psychoenergetic operational activities by INSCOM in the National Foreign Intelligence Programs. The committee was apparently under the misconception that the project was double funded, having noted that there were 2 line item entries in the budget, one for DIA and one for INSCOM. Slide 28. The congressional conferences agreed, however, to let DIA complete the 3rd year of their effort, but directed that future funding in any of the psychoenergetic activity be budgeted outside of the NFIP, since the DIA efforts seemed to them to be R&D oriented. Slide 29. In keeping with the congressional desires, INSCOM terminated formal involvement with GrillFlame at the end of 1982, but maintained its momentum of effort by the direction of the CG INSCOM under a special access program called Center Lane, funded with S&IA monies. In January of 1983, Dr. Richard DeLuer, the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, signed a memorandum allowing P6 resources to be used to maintain and support the Center Lane program, thus reversing the Perry Memorandum of 1980. Slide 30. On the 19th of October, 1983, DIA published the results of their 3-year psychoenergetics evaluation effort. There were several key recommendations that resulted from the 3-year GrillFlame effort as shown here. These findings and recommendations were supported by an independent science review panel, and of course, that is not for our eyes. Basic research in both remote viewing and remote action phenomena should be initiated. Applied intelligence applications research in remote viewing should be continued and should be under the overall management of DIA. Slide 31. In August of 1984, the decision was made to make the operational activities of INSCOM Remote Viewing Unit more responsive to 10 strategic national level tasking. In order to do this, it would be necessary to transfer the unit to DIA. On 18th of September 1984, an MOA between DIA and INSCOM for Project Center Lane's transfer was complete. Slide 32. By February of 1985, the initial steps were underway to transfer Center Lane to DIA as a DoD Special Access Program. Slide 33. During the same time period Congress was being briefed on, the DIA planned to form a collection activity based on more than 10 years of government-sponsored research and DIA's own 3-year GrillFlame effort. With the understanding that it was DIA's intent to conduct an intelligence collection program and not an R&D effort, the Senate restored NFIP funding for intelligence applications for fiscal year of '86 and beyond. This part is crossed out, but I will read it anyway. As a separate issue, DoD is also conducting a moderate R&D effort through USAMRDC, I think that's what that says, I don't know, which has a P6 funding from Director Research and Engineering. Slide 34. The DoD and the DIA psychoenergetic collection effort is now being called Sunstreak, and the mission of Sunstreak is shown here. Project Sunstreak, purpose to undertake operational intelligence applications using an aspect of psychoenergetics known as remote viewing. Slide 35. Project Sunstreak facilities and activities are located at Fort Meade, Maryland, approximately halfway between D.C., Baltimore, Maryland. Slide 36. Remote viewing is a highly controlled and formally established, unique intelligence collection capability which has the following characteristics. It is passive. To the extent of our knowledge, collection by remote viewing is totally passive. That is to say, it cannot be detected when used. Slide 37. Only one scientific claim of detection of remote viewing is known. Chinese scientists claim to have detected remote viewing during their experiments with children. Data on these experiments is insufficient to validate this claim. And this is where it's kind of disgusting. Work to replicate these experiments, however, is ongoing at SRI. Now, I'm not saying they're using children as well, but it kind of leaves that feeling. Maybe SRI was only using known psychic adults, but because they were trying to replicate the Chinese experiments, are they using children? I don't know. God, I hope not. Slide 38. Remote viewing is inexpensive. The principal cost of the remote viewing collection is the people involved. There is little expensive hardware since, for the most part, the people themselves are the equipment. Slide 39. There is no known defense, time, distance, target, size, or degree of difficulty. All have no apparent effect on the collection by remote viewing. Even conceptualized plans have been collected against prior to their actual implementation. Slide 40. Remote viewing has been successfully used against 7 categories of tasking. 2 of these categories, penetration of inaccessible targets and the queuing of their intelligence collection systems, are used predominantly at this time. 2 others, human source assessments and accurate personality profiles, presently lack a satisfactory database for effective exploitation. Tasking categories: penetration of inaccessible targets, science and technology information, queuing of other intelligence collection systems, imminent hostilities, deterioration of nuclear from non-nuclear targets, human source assessments, accurate personality profiles. Slide 41. An integral part of the mission of Sunstreak involves training professional intelligence personnel to remote view. In 1979, INSCOM integrated the SRI contracted orientation technology into their in-house program, where it is still in use today for new personnel. Training developed from the practical application of state-of-the-art psychoenergetic technology drawn from academic institutions, scientific laboratories, and research establishments around the world. An electric approach was taken using those methods which had applications potential for operational requirements. Training: practical exercises, lectures, literature review, observation of others, practical training sessions concluded against training targets. Slide 42. In the 1970s, the consensus was that remote viewing process seemed to be facilitated by physical relaxation and enhanced internal attention, or paying attention to one's own mental imagery and impressions. This conceptualized idea state became the basis for the type of remote viewing now called extended remote viewing, ERV. ERV, extended remote viewing, a system whereby the remote viewer prepares through a method of deep relaxation and focused attention. Slide 43. In mid-1982, a new training program began in coordinate remote viewing, CRV, with SRI. This new process, developed by Ingo Swan and SRI subcontractors, subdivides the detection and decoding of psychic impressions into discrete, achievable skill levels known as stages 1 through 6. The process usually begins by presenting the remote viewer's source with geographic coordinates, hence the name Coordinate Remote Viewing, CRV. Slide 44. The next part of the briefing will discuss what actually occurs in response to a tasking requirement for Sunstreak information. Typically, a project begins with a request for information on a target from a requesting agency. Slide 45. The first task is the construction of a remote viewing collection plan. Slide 46. The collection plan lists the essential elements of information and the intelligence indicators which will address these EEI. Slide 47. Also listed are the target time windows for which these indicators will be relevant. Slide 48. The collection plan also indicates which remote viewing technique or whether a combination of techniques will be used. Slide 49. Remote viewers are selected on the basis of their past performance on the types of indicators which are needed for a particular project. Slide 50. Several sessions or interviews may have to be done to address all the indicators needed to answer the EEI. Slide 51. A remote viewing session is a team effort. The team consists of the interviewer or monitor and the remote viewer. The ERV interviewer's job is to keep the remote viewer on track, to direct the focus of the remote viewer, and to elicit information about the target. Slide 52. The CRV's monitor's job is to control and to supervise the structure of the remote viewing session. Slide 53. The remote viewer is responsible for reporting impressions, concepts, ideas, sensations, feelings, and notions of the target. The goal of the session is to collect information of intelligence value. To do this, great care is taken to try and encourage the remote viewer to produce only psychic information of intelligence value and not an analytic opinion. Slide 54. When the remote viewing session is complete, it is fully documented and a report is furnished to the requesting agency. Slide 55. After the project is completed, the requester provides an evaluation. As with any other intelligence sources, the evaluation is essential. The remote viewer wishes to know if he did well in his efforts. This helps him in future projects as well as establishing a sense of worth in his efforts to remote view. It also provides us with a growing database on each remote viewer's success rate for enhancement of further tasking. Slide 56. This has been a brief overview of Project Sunstreak, a psychoenergetic program under the auspices of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Let me caution you against the information contained in this briefing has been classified secret and is compartmented special access information. And that, my friends, is the end. Whew, that was kind of a lot, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a lot. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow I'm going to go over some of the other stuff I found tied to this, what they were remote viewing, what I think it is, and then on a very separate video, what I found out it was. I don't really know if I know anything about it. Obviously, these are all intelligence agencies, and whatever they release to us is highly sanitized, and I have absolutely no doubt at all, that most of this stuff is still extremely secret. No, most of it has not been released to the public, and what I am finding is just bits of information. What I do want to say quickly, because this is a really long video and I do apologize for it, but I just wanted to go through exactly what they were presenting to their higher-ups, is that this is a Defense Intelligence Agency's project. As you can see, it's gone through a lot of different names, moved around a lot, had funding, kind of funky with it. When I go to the Defense Intelligence Agency's website and I try to go to their reading room to find anything on Sunstreak, there is nothing available at all. Obviously, I found this on the NSA. No, I can't even say that. I found this on the internet, and it was a link that brought me to the NSA Archive. So interestingly, it's released by the CIA. This actual documentation I didn't find on the CIA website, and I did look for a while, but it's on the NSA website, but nothing on the DIA website. It's just weird and convoluted. So we'll go over some more of it tomorrow, or the next day whenever I get the next video up. Thank you for watching. Please, if you like what you watch, hit the like button, comment on it, just let me know. Have you heard of the name Ingo Swann? Because I had heard it before, and when I saw he's brought up a lot in this stuff, isn't he? Pretty crazy. I'll be doing some research on Ingo Swann, and I'm gonna try to see if I can find some more information on Gondola Wish, Centerlane, Grill Flame, and all the other BS I saw. So thanks for watching.